This conference will
well,
now be
all right.
recorded.
So I guess we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance, given that it's the first agenda item.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to
and
the
to the
republic
republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, thank you all for attending. I would assume there are no public comments.
I would not
Mr.
assume that. I think we have a couple callers that are unknown.
Could I take a roll call, even just for the record, even though it's
Yes.
virtual? Okay, so Supervisor Goldberg,
Yes.
Trustee Eisenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Thomas,
Here.
Trustee Robbins,
Here.
Trustee Moser,
Here.
and Director Ty,
Here.
and of course Jack.
Okay, thank you. All right, so to double check on public comments, is there anybody on this call who is a member of the public who would like to say something? Okay. I don't have copies of the minutes. Does anyone else?
Ellen, I sent it this afternoon, so I don't know whether.
And I guess it didn't get forwarded out. So we'll do that at our next meeting. We'll have a bunch of minutes to approve. Supervisors report. We're working in unusual times. And more than anything else, I want to let you guys know how hard and how almost brilliantly our staff has been working during this series of events we're going through. We are down to Larisha and Brian and Diane. Jean is working as best she can from home. Her doctor has ordered her to stay home until March 30th. These guys are working like dogs, and we're very lucky to have each of them. So that's really about the supervisor's report. What we're doing and how we proceed is it is seat of the pants, where we've, at least at our township, have never done this before. And while it's an interesting tool and we may actually get to be good at it, it's an experiment up to this point. And I thank you for your forbearance on that. So those would be the township updates. If anyone wants to talk about it, it says discussion. If
Can you give us a sense of if we're seeing increased use of our food pantry, what our stocks are, what kind of emergency planning we had in place, and whether we're following those plans?
what we did not have in place was we did not have emergency planning for this event. And it's something that we really need to do as we're going through this, and especially right after. In all the years the townships existed, this was never perceived to be a possibility. While it should have, it wasn't. So we're, like, as I said before, we're flying kind of by the seat of our pants. In the unlikely and unfortunate event that something like this occurs again, we will have a plan in place. Yeah, that's really all I can say about that. Is there any other discussion?
Oh, sorry, the other part was, are we already seeing increased use of our food pantry?
No.
Or is that anticipated?
I could answer that. Yes. To date, as of we started Monday, to date, we've had 52 people. As everyone knows, we are handing out individual pre-prepared bags of non-perishable items. The increase, in the staff's opinion, is not that which we expected at this point in time, notwithstanding the fact that as the supplies diminish, if that's the case, we are working, and I can address that later, but the supplies diminish in the stores, which seem to be maintaining at this point. I would anticipate that we might get an increase. We've had the 52 bags go out. We have packaged bags all prepared. We're taking people as they call in, request that. Everyone has been contacted on our pantry ledgers. Many people are not able to go out. They don't want to go out. The ones that can come out have been able to coordinate a family member that would want to pick something up. If someone is able to come in, they will do that. We meet them at the door, give them the bag. They're not coming in the township. The township is closed to the public. We've been working with the different grocery stores in our area, as well as trying to reach out to other places we have accounts with. And people are being very generous. However, as you've all experienced, I'm sure, there are limitations at this point in time on items. Obviously, the biggest amounts are the paper goods and the toilet paper, the Kleenex, and those kind of things. The donations, people are continuing to reach out. That we have the information. They can reach out to Brian. We usually meet them at the back door. We no longer have anybody from our house for the next, well, it's been a week now, probably another week. That's to be determined due to the increased vulnerability of individuals. Jane and her son Frank have been coming in probably every other day to assist in stocking the shelves, which is an incredible dedication to the township. We've had two new Trier Township gentlemen, don't know what their year is in there, but that they had offered. They've been in helping pack the bags with Ryan. We have a standard list of items that are, and it actually looks quite nice, the bags. There are no perishable items, as I mentioned, but they've been helping pack the bags. We're using those blue bags for those of you who are familiar with it. And those are some, I'm hearing feedback. Someone just came on. Caller
Yeah,
02.
if we could use the, turn down the mics if we're not using them, it'd be great, please.
Okay. So we're using these cloth bags. We have ordered another set of them. We are receiving donations, checks in the mail, and people will drop that off, which is a gracious thing. At this point in time, the need is actually supplies, because we, like I mentioned, are not able to get certain things. For instance, rice is an item, peanut butter is an item. Those are the kind of items we're asking for. Jack, I believe you have that list. We had that updated today. We're going to include that in our requests. So we aren't seeing huge increases. I do think because of the rules and the regulations and the health requirements put out by the CDC and the state as well.
My understanding, and I could be wrong, is that Larisha had been calling the pantry clients
That
to
is
let
correct.
them know what we were doing?
Yes, she's reached out to the entire list.
We have reached out.
Yes. Many, like I said, the ones that are able to have come, doesn't always get a response. We've had some issues with not being able to reach people. The numbers are not any longer in service, which is something Jean will have to look into when she returns to the office. The people in the community know that we are in need of supplies. Last night on my way home, stopped at Lakeside. Brian and I were talking and I reminded him we have an account there, although it's a small local store. I spoke with one of the managers. They were very happy. I hear a dog, and does anybody hear a dog?
Not mine.
No? Okay. They were very happy to do and accommodate whatever. Brian's been over there twice, morning and afternoon. Their availability of things is sparse. Go ahead, Jerome.
And I just want to let you know, it's less than a week. They're brand new owners.
Yeah.
Of the store.
Well, they've been there probably 6 months, but they are getting a shipment. Last night, they got a shipment this morning. I can't hear you, Jerome. Jerome, okay. I can't hear you. Go ahead.
No, it just a brand new. They just bought the business maybe a week or two ago. It's the managers have been there forever, but that's kind of a new opportunity to have a new relationship.
Right. They, however, are facing the same problems. Grand is limiting things. They're very responsive. We do have, which is good news, we were able to get a hold of Jewel on Green Bay. They were able to accommodate us and give us portions of our request. And they've been able to give us not a shipment, we had it picked up. So they are all aware of our need and the continued need. We don't know for how long. It's pretty much indefinite at this point. But our objective is to make sure that we are able to prepare these bags and have them available. We've had several requests from non-township pantry individuals. We, of course, welcomed them and said, please come. We do need their information. So that we are able perhaps to reach out to them at another time to let them know about our pantry in our township.
If we could pause for a second, I'm getting a message from a constituent that the GoToMeeting number isn't working. I don't know if I just want to check quickly that the one we put on the Facebook invite is the same that we have, is accurate.
Yes, caller 01.
Copy from right from GoToMeeting. So
let me just check.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
This morning.
Are the pre-prepared bags going over well? Are people saying they're pleased with what we've chosen?
They are very gracious to have it. They understand. I would expect that their expectation would not be that of anything else other than non-perishables for obvious reasons with the now that we know that it's airborne, now that we know it lives on bags, on paper goods for 4 to 4.5 days. To that point, which is a side comment, not your question, is that we are storing those if we get donations and letting a 4-day period pass before we go through and have the shelves stocked.
Another question, Diane, is there anyone on the list that says they could benefit from the bags, but they're afraid or unable to pick them up? Because if so, I'm wondering if we could perhaps implement a system by which we might be able to use the volunteers, for example, or others to drop off those bags.
I don't know of a case directly. I could certainly follow up on that, Elliot. I am understanding from at least what I've heard from Larisha's recent today that some of these people, as you well know, are seniors and would prefer not to go. They're wrong word, but I think it's a common word, is they're terrified. They don't want to go out. If they have family members that are able to go out, notwithstanding the fact that family members as well can be exposed, and as a result, they end up infecting. The fear of it being airborne and that type of thing is problematic. I can certainly follow up and find out if they're looking at that. It does beg the question of having volunteers driving, delivering, liability issues, risk for their health, because everyone is at risk. All you've got to do is, touch a doorknob, do whatever. We're having, we have which is the classic thing where you have the hand sanitizer. We have about a half a bottle left. We're trying desperately to get some more. Brian is wearing gloves. Harish is wearing gloves. I'll wear that when I'm there. It's a very, very risky situation. But yes, I will
understand.
put that, and I will find out if there's any those needs. I think we do, and Jack's done a tremendous job of putting this information on, and he's going to be preparing, I know, another update. But the people will ask, and they will call if they are asking for things.
Diane, one last follow-up. Can you describe the process by which the filled bag is tendered to the people that come for it? Do they come to the front door and ring the bell? Do we then say, stand back a little bit and put the bag outside? How is that
Sorry,
conducted?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. In fact, I
How do
just
we-
got, go ahead.
How do
Looked
we
like
conduct it?
Pardon me
do
to
we
interrupt
treat
one
this?
more time. I think Sandy Forrester was trying to call me. Jack?
Yeah,
You hear
I
me?
hear you. She should be able to get in.
Okay. I'm sorry, Elliot, go ahead. Describe the process. What happens is, obviously the bags are prepared. We have them lined up. We have given Brian's number and also the main township number, and have asked for what we are calling appointments in the general sense of the word. They will call, they will give the name. We're trying to track this so we have the statistics and are able to obviously confirm where some of the people are, our township people, and that, and track that, because we are going to be upgrading that list. But they will set a time and say, Brian will say, or Larisha or myself will say, come on in. What happens on other occasions is that people just ring the bell. They just read this note on the door and just wondered if they could have a bag. And we do accommodate that. We are not turning, obviously, anyone away. And really, if they don't have that appointment, it's fine. We hand that out the door to them. And most of them are quite pleased with that process, quite frankly, because of the different risks, even in handing off something. And when you have a rubber glove on, if anybody noticed, is that people will, even going through drive-throughs, people are touching credit cards, people are touching whatever. So in our office, for instance, Brian was doing something and I stopped him. He went to scratch his face, a normal thing that all of us do. Okay, it's very easy to do. And people we're having our offices clean, the doors wiped down, all of the doors, the handles, everything is constantly like wiped down. So that doesn't guarantee us anything, but the people are receiving it handed out the door.
Very good. They're not coming into the premises.
No, we have no one in the building, and Jan is responding to that as well. Is that correct, Jan?
Yes, since the assessors has suspended all filing deadlines, I have declared the assessor's office closed because I don't think we're essential as long as we're not open, as long as we don't need to be open for appeals.
Correct. Correct.
Yes.
And we haven't gotten any calls of any sort, and then people aren't coming in the building. So Elliot, does that answer your question?
It does, Diane. Thank you for those detailed explanations. I think we all know that potentially we're just at the very beginning of this. And I suspect if this were to drag on for some number of months, then we might have some people in the township with job losses, and there could be further demands on the pantry. We're just at the very beginning of this, and we're all hoping and praying that this is not a 2, 3, 4-month ordeal, but it could be. And that's why it's great that we're meeting, because we're starting to all think ahead to what might develop over time. Thank you, Diane. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This morning, I spoke with 5 churches or synagogues in the township to remind them that we do have a food pantry and we do have other services, and left them with Brian's number, his direct number, and what will come of that, I don't know, but had a nice reception from each of the people I spoke with. And it's a way to get our name out too.
Absolutely.
Alan, excuse me, can you tell me who caller 1 and caller 2 are, or can Jack? I've got these unidentified squares.
And I just picked up a email or voicemail from Sandy. I'm gonna go silent for a minute here and hear what she has to say.
Alan, if I could request to amend the agenda to pull back up public comment now that we've had more people join us, just to see if any of them wanted to speak.
Sure. Well, what I've tried to do, as long as we've been a body, is if I see someone, I ask them if they want to talk. I don't see anybody, but if there is anybody who is a member of the public and would like to ask a question, make a statement, do any of that, even though I can't see you, please go ahead.
This
Hey,
is
Jack,
Debbie
can you hear me?
Gensley from Meals on Wheels. Do you want me to speak at all, or are you going to call on me later?
I think when we discuss the emergency response actions, unless anybody has questions right now, would like her to respond to present her request for additional funding now, I would think we would move that to that discussion.
Excuse me, I still don't know who caller 1 and caller 2 are. But
I don't know either.
if they would identify themselves, it'd be very.
I've got Sandy here. I don't know if any, no, you won't be able to hear her. She's been trying to get on. Jerome, she's using the number. Jack's off right now.
The only,
She's not.
I have names under the pictures, but I don't know who 1 or 2 are. I don't know that they're
No,
here. I don't
the
know who.
email. Jack sent out another thing. Let me see if I can forward it to you. Okay, let me see if I can forward it. Okay, I'll call you. Okay, bye. Look at your township email.
Can you hear me?
Is that
I'm
David?
back.
Yeah, hey, Gail.
Hi, did you want to address the board?
I did.
Who
Hi,
are
this is
you
Dave.
first?
This is David Heiser. I have no idea if I'm caller 1, caller 2. I signed in under my name, and I.
Got your name.
Anyway. So I'm a Wilmette resident. I live around the corner from Gail. And I was curious, was listening in on Joel Kurtzman's, Wilmette trustee call earlier. And with respect to the grocery stores in the area, all of which conduct holiday food pantry drives. And I don't know that those specifically benefit the new Trier food pantry, but I'm not seeing anything at Jewel or the Whole Foods that's just over the border in Evanston, which isn't necessarily pursuant to this. But those are the 2 grocery stores that I visit most frequently. I'm not seeing the pay $10 to buy a bag of food that then goes to support food drive needs. And it seems like we're at an apt juncture where that would make sense and where the PR advantage to those firms to be participating and being a force for good, beyond what they're already doing, would probably be, at least my estimation, probably something that they'd be open to at least talking about, if not jumping on.
David, let me break in a second. This is John Thomas. You really ought to talk to Brian Leverance. He's in constant contact with the Jewel stores, and they're constantly cooperating with us. So maybe they're already in the loop.
Good one, asshole.
Well, David, we were on the same page because I did ask Brian. And Brian has been in touch with Jewel Brands and Fresh Market. At this point, they were not willing to let us do a drive. I'm not sure if that will change. I like your idea of having it be similar to the Thanksgiving. My goal was just to put a box at the entry where people could. So maybe that would be more receptive, and we'll definitely bring that to Brian.
I know that some of the groceries help us with turkeys and things, turkeys and hams during the holiday season. And that's been happening for many years.
Correct.
Yeah, I think what people need right now is less about, perishables and meats for a specific occasion, the more durables in terms of food that they can get their hands on and be able to use over time. But I mean, I get it. The food distribution system is under a tremendous amount of pressure right now. We can all see that. But they will catch up, and they will probably catch up fairly quickly within the next couple of weeks. And the opportunity for somebody going through the cash register in our geography and with our townships, demography and economic station relative to a lot of the surrounding areas, that chance to plunk down 10 extra bucks when you're checking out to buy a bag full of groceries that goes to the food pantry, that's powerful. And that, I think, is a missed opportunity. And it's one thing to ask, it's another thing to press. I'd be interested in seeing that the board does as much as they can to make sure that the corporations that are operating in our communities are in fact supporting our communities. And we're not asking them to sell any less stuff. We're not asking them to give anything away. We're asking them to facilitate an opportunity for people to contribute, members of the community to contribute to their own community. And we're asking them to do nothing more but to be a facilitator for that. That seems abundantly reasonable.
I was interviewed by 22nd Century Media at the end of last week. And I put in a plug for donating to the food pantry and the Angel Fund and all that. It may or may not run in this Thursday's papers. I don't know, but Jack did set up that interview and seemed like a pleasant conversation. And that's something we do on an ongoing basis, try and reach out to the community, let them know that we're available. Okay.
All right, well, thanks for taking my question.
Anytime. An agenda item on here is emergency pandemic responses. I think that's kind of what we've been talking about all along. As time goes on, we'll try and come up with ongoing ideas of what we can do. And as Elliot, I think, said, it's something we hope isn't more than a month or so, but we don't know. We'll keep seeing what we can do to get more of our services to more of our neighbors as we go on. And I ask each of the trustees, not that you're a shy group, but open up and put out what suggestions you have. And if it's practical and doable, not always the same thing, but we'll try and see to it that we can more effectively meet the needs. And I think the needs are going to change as time goes on as well.
Well, to that end, I have a motion. I
Oh,
would
good.
like to move to approve the increased appropriations for Meals on Wheels, formerly known as Meals at Home, as requested earlier this week.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. So now let's talk about it. I believe the request was an additional 5,000? No, or
No.
more.
And 10,000, I believe.
Are we talking increasing or are we talking additional dollars?
Additional.
Their increase in clients and volunteers will not stop. The processing time for each new person is substantial. They would like us to pay one staff person for 10 additional hours a week for the next 2 months. The staff person would be a program coordinator. He or she is a new Trier resident usually works only 30 hours a week, so increasing her work hours to 40 hours a week is appropriate, fair, and necessary. This would be, therefore, they're requesting $10,000. And we do have the executive director on the line, and I'd like to yield the floor to her unless there are any objections.
With the question I would have is, how many of the additional clients are New Trier residents?
We have so many clients coming in every day that, for example, over the last 3 business days, we have had an organization contact us to say, can you take on our clients each day? So they're coming in, 30, 40 clients a day. I honestly don't know at this point what the breakdown would be in terms of New Trier or which community. They're coming in from places like North Shore Senior Center is trying to find a place to direct their people because all of the Title III programs are saying they're at capacity. There's an organization in Evanston over the rainbow that is looking for a place for their clients to have food. Obviously, those are all Evanston residents. Whether they always live there, I don't know.
Well, I would have very little objection to increasing with the good organization, all that, and there's a specific need. But I would need to know that a significant number of that additional money would be going to New Trier residents.
Of course.
You could get us that.
Yeah, well,
that
in terms of
that
the
we could
clients,
deal with it at our next meeting. But without that information, it would be difficult for me.
Me too.
I can try to do that. I had thought because the funding is for to employ a person at more hours, that might just cut right through it for you.
It's the end beneficiary that determines our funding level.
Okay.
And again, I would be
really hard to
very
do
much
right
in
now.
favor
Yeah.
if there was a significant number of New Trier residents.
Mm-hmm.
I would also ask whether or not there has been requests for additional funding from other sources by Meals on Wheels.
There absolutely has. That's why I broke out this piece. I just thought that would be an easy chunk for you guys. We literally tripled our client numbers last week. So it's not like we have an ounce of extra staff time. People are putting in more hours than they're paid. And that was why I went the route that I did. But if you look at just the food increase for the next month, not really knowing if this pace will continue with additional organizations contacting us asking for help. But right now we're projecting an increase in food costs of $22,000 and an increased kitchen staff increase because if you remember when I came in and spoke with you guys last time, we're in the process of opening this kitchen and we're only a couple of weeks away. So we had intended to bring on kitchen staff gradually as we were able to afford and build up the client numbers. We're already at the number of clients that we had projected for the end of 2021 and don't have the luxury anymore of bringing on staff gradually. So we're trying to figure out all of these things. So this is in addition to the $10,000 that I'm asking you for the kitchen staff. So that already gets us up to $46,000. I have requests into Evanston Community Foundation. United Way Chicago asked, I submitted something and we just found out today that we're getting $50,000 from them. So that will be wonderful. We also are, because we're still finishing up the construction and everyone knows there are always overages anytime you construct anything, we're up against that and had made cuts in areas like the generator and an additional walk-in, which would be for emergency situations like this. So we're looking at that as well.
Is this Is this a separate and in addition to the request that you forwarded and that we all read through in the last week or so from Meals on Wheels?
The things that I just listed are things that I didn't even include in that request. These are above and beyond.
Right, so the email that I forwarded onto the board for consideration today is the $10,000 request. Then I asked Brian to forward you the original grant application from the normal grant process.
And he did.
And he did. So I just want to make sure we're keeping everything separate. But yes, Brian also did send me a little analysis as well. I grab it from email. Looking at their 2019 audit, I think more funding would warrant some additional funding. First, they now have current and long-term liabilities. They had not had long-term liabilities in the form of accounts payable. They never had long-term liabilities in form of accounts payable, but now they do, and it's $70,000. I assume this is associated with the new kitchen. Adding up short-term accounts payable and long-term liabilities, and you get an agency that would greatly would have to spend down its reserves from last year. Has greatly reduced reserves from last year. So what else do I wanted to say here?
Will we be looking also in the next few minutes at the request that you, Gail, had forwarded as a separate request? In other words, you just made a motion that we're discussing. Will we then be seeing another motion for that first request?
This is the motion is for the 10,000. To approve the request as made.
How is the volunteer situation? Are people still committed, or are some of the volunteers reluctant to participate given the pandemic?
Right. Well, we took a number of precautions that involved the volunteers right from the start. First, we eliminated anyone who was potentially a high-risk person. So if we knew that the volunteer had traveled in the last 2 weeks, and this was, 2 weeks ago, whenever we made that call, so those people right off the bat were eliminated. A number of people, because of their age, were eliminated. And similar to the things I was hearing described by the food pantry, we're trying to limit exposure. We now have gone to weekly deliveries instead of daily. So we're using a smaller volunteer pool and trying to just focus on those same people. We're wiping everything down before we go in. All of us, all the staff are working from home, but one staff person goes into the office to distribute meals on that Monday, wipes everything down, including the boxes. They use gloves. They're very, very careful in their packing. And we are not having face-to-face contact with the clients, which, as you know, a big part of what we do is the friendly visit. So now we're emphasizing phone conversations, reaching out to their family, things like that instead. So it's a really tough time that way. The other thing that I was going to mention, similar to what you're experiencing with the food pantry, is the food shortages. With our suppliers, there are things that we cannot get. There are things where we are capped at the number that we can order. So the food situation is less than ideal. And when we have this kitchen open and have that food production, we'll have a lot more flexibility to make sure we're getting foods that we're happy with to people and that they're happy with. So anyway, back to your volunteer question, we've definitely had a loss in a lot of volunteers, but at the same time, we've had a huge response from the community where people want to volunteer. Again, it takes time to process every single one of those. We run background checks on people. There's a little bit of training, although it's a whole different ballgame right now. just saw the statistics so far this week, which it's only Tuesday, we had 27 new volunteers come in. That's 2 months worth of volunteers in 2 days. So it's just, everything is amplified tremendously.
With the uptick in requests, with the new number of clients, do you believe you have sufficient volunteers, especially now you've gone back to the once a week delivery from the daily delivery? You think that there's sufficient volunteers to execute the plan with the increased number of clients?
I think that there is. I'm not as worried about the volunteer numbers because we do have that steady stream of new people coming in, and we have streamlined the process for training them. We're actually bringing in some of the volunteers that are longtime office helpers to have them with some of the processing. It's just too much for the staff.
And my last set of questions have to do with the kitchen. The kitchen is not open now, so the meals that you're preparing are the same that we've been using for the last several years, correct?
We still have Evanston Hospital for the medically prescribed, and I should say those are still the daily meals. So that's a little bit different. For anyone who's able to take on the general diet rather, those have gone to a frozen meal, and that was just in the transition. We're just trying to get whatever we can for people in that case. Evanston Hospital is moving. They had been daily. Next week they will go to a Monday, Wednesday, Friday delivery, again to reduce the exposure.
The kitchen, is the kitchen on hold for now, or are they still constructing it?
They're still they're under construction. We're hoping that it will be ready to go the week of April 13th for cleaning and organizing, and then start producing April 20th rather, the following week. And at that point, we will produce frozen meals in massive quantities just to try to keep up. And when we have that met, we'll start introducing fresh meals again.
Okay. Because it's a lot to juggle. I mean, given the increased needs, the increased number of clients with the pandemic, it seems to me it's just a nightmare juggling the opening of the kitchen and trying to get that up and running. I'm wondering if maybe the operation of the kitchen should be put on hold until the pandemic subsides. You've probably thought about that.
Yeah, the logistics right now of trying to find food, it would be a whole lot easier to just be able to get the ingredients in and make what we know we can make and get it done. It gives us so much more control over the situation. And we're already, the walk-in cooler freezer is ready to go. So we're working on getting permission to start building the inventory, knowing that certain things are in short supply. So try to stock that up. And that was always intended to be, the kitchen was always intended to be an emergency meal source for our communities as well. So the timing would have been great if we opened January 1st, but here we are.
Well, I'm glad it's coming along and that it will be complete. Just as a note for the board, it looks like 25% of clients before this pandemic were New Trier Township residents. I would, make a, educated guess that perhaps 25% of the increase is also New Trier Township. So, and please correct me if you think that is not a sound assumption.
No, I think that's a safe assumption, actually.
So,
I would call for a vote.
Before we call for a vote, well, all right, if that's the.
I may or may not have already seconded.
I'm trying to.
Before we call for a vote, hadn't we ought to figure if we're going to address the second request, I don't mean say yes or no, but address it.
Yeah,
because
that's, I'm trying to think of the best way to get this passed. I would like to propose that we bring this up at our next meeting when we have information as to how many new Trier residents are involved. That would be the difference between a yes and no vote from me and I think John.
Well, it's not a friendly amendment to my motion. I think it needs 2/3.
Okay,
If you're intending to amend the motion on the table that's already been seconded for a question.
yeah, I'm sorry?
There's been a motion. The question was called. I seconded it. So at this point, we have a simple majority on the floor to call the question. If that doesn't pass, then we can't.
All right, then all in favor of calling the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, well then we'll call the question. All in favor? Would you restate the motion, Gail?
I move to approve the additional appropriation of $10,000 as requested by Meals on Wheels, formerly Meals at Home.
Okay.
I would
The
just like,
motion is what Gail just said.
can I have a little discussion on the topic?
We closed the floor for discussion.
Excuse me, I didn't hear because caller 3 should mute their mic.
Okay. Having said that, Jerome, would you call the
Getting
vote?
feedback from somebody's mic. We need to try to mute mics as best we can, please.
Caller 3. That's what my computer says.
Yeah, can you go ahead and mute people on your end?
All right, so
Supervisor Goldberg,
no.
Trustee Eisenberg,
Can't hear you.
Keep your mics on to vote.
Trustee Eisenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Moser,
Yes.
Trustee Robbins,
I vote yes, because sometimes in a catastrophic situation like we're in right now, you have to sometimes throw money at a problem, knowing full well that we may not be getting the full amount of the bang for the buck that we need for our new Trier Township residents. We have some funds. I vote yes to throw some money at this and hope that we can make a difference, and then to sort it out later.
Trustee Thomas,
Well, if we're going to be looking at a second request, I'll vote yes on this one.
okay, thank you, 4-1.
Okay, the motion carries.
Now,
Please.
could I please ask who is caller 3 that has a microphone that's giving me a terrible buzz?
Sandy.
It's Sandy. Okay, sure. I should turn my.
Turn your mic off.
I can mute the mic for you. I can mute it from this end. I'll mute you now, okay?
Okay.
That took care of it.
Thank you.
So I'd like a recap if this is the additional $10,000 apart and separate.
It was a $10,000 additional appropriation to Meals on Wheels.
Okay, and this will be coming out of?
That's, I would think.
Diane, do we have
I
any
would agree.
funds that we can most correctly take these funds from?
It wouldn't come out of the agencies. That's obviously we just done that. I would recommend, although we don't have the new budget in place, nor do we have the year end at this point, out of the pots, which I think that was Stefan or whoever. That's where we did that for the other item, if you all recall, in the pots line item. So that would be the best place to do that, and we can accordingly, as we go through the budget process, note that and include that is the appropriate line item in that line
For
item.
those on the line, POTS is projects of township significance.
One thing that I'm wondering, because I'm always in favor of networking, we have our executive director here from Meals on Wheels, correct?
Correct.
Tell us your name again. I should know it.
Debbie Genty.
Debbie, that's right. And you were one of my agencies. I'm an agency oversight trustee. The one thing that I always wonder about is whether if we get into a situation down the road where we have some of our food pantry clients who need to take advantage of the bags that we are making for them, but they cannot come in and get it. I always wonder whether any of your volunteers, if you're flush with volunteers, might be willing to run some of our bags over potentially to our food pantry clients. Just something to think about. Don't commit to it, but I'm wondering if we can perhaps tap into your volunteer pool if that becomes an issue.
Yeah, well, it's actually something that we have talked about a lot, and as part of our new plan, we needed the new location to be open first, and people who could receive meals, I know Brian and I have talked about this a number of times, if it would be possible for a volunteer to pick up on behalf of a client. And I know we had some people who were doing that, but going forward, if there is a way to have the meals delivered or have the food, the new Trier pantry food delivered with our meals, I think that would be a very good solution to a lot of things right now.
And right now, it sounds like from Diane's wonderful report, we don't really have a run on the most of the people that need the bags that we're preparing are able to come in and get them. But I'm just thinking long term that this drags on. If this quarantine, this shelter in place drags on, and some of our seniors who use our pantry and usually come in, if they're unable to come in or afraid to come in, we may find some common ground with your volunteer pool. Just something to think about. And hopefully,
I actually had this dispute with my mother a few hours ago today because she should not be out. She is high risk out of the vulnerable population, and to try to get people to stay home is sometimes a challenge. But yeah, our people are rather homebound, where they're not necessarily able to carry bags back from the food pantry. So definitely something that I think more should be taking advantage of, and will be better positioned to make that happen going forward.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
In addition, I have collected about 33 New Trier Township residents who are willing to volunteer as soon as we have a need. Of course, it's an online survey, and therefore many of the people who probably need delivery because they're shut in might not be looking at the online surveys. So, as those needs come, we can match some of these volunteers to those needs. As of late, I simply said to them, thank you for volunteering, and gave them information about Brian and setting up an appointment to drop off food. A lot of them offered to drop off food, but there are other options. People were offering to walk dogs, where people were offering to do childcare, emergency childcare. So all sorts of things that people have been offering. So our community is certainly stepping up.
One of the other many things that we plan to do when this location opens, we have a Meals on Wheels programs across the country partner with PetSmart to do dog food, pet food distribution. So that is something on the to-do list. So the dog walking would fit in well with that as well. We know it's important to decrease loneliness in this population who experiences a lot of loneliness by keeping pets in place. And we also know if they're struggling to access food for themselves, they probably are for a pet as well. We can put the most nutritious meal in the world in front of them, but they're not going to necessarily eat all of it if they don't have food for their pet. So that's where that plan came in, and that could be a great partnership, Gail.
Okay, well.
One final thing. Diane indicated that two foods that we're short of in the pantry are rice and peanut butter. So I'm sure that's universal for all Meals on Wheels type programs and food pantry programs. But if you have any leads on assisting us and maybe where we can get rice and peanut butter, we're all ears.
As
I will
well
let
as
you know.
mashed potatoes as well.
Mashed
Okay.
potatoes as well.
Mhm.
Okay,
Very
well,
good.
thank you. And
Yeah, thank all of you.
congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We have one item that is,
Isn't there a second request for Meals on Wheels?
to what?
Isn't there a second request for Meals
No.
on Wheels?
This was their request. I had asked Brian to forward their last request so you could see
Okay.
their detailed
Thank you,
analysis.
Gail. Thank you.
Okay. All right. The annual meeting. So Jerome, I have been told that pandemic or not, we have to hold an annual meeting on the prescribed date. What I would suggest, and then we can talk around it, is that we have a small meeting, maybe even on this device, depending on the situation of the pandemic stuff going forward, that we do what we need to do for the annual meeting, present the budgets and that kind of stuff. And then when the take-up center is available and everything else, go ahead and have another meeting that we do all this extra stuff that we would be doing. That would be my suggestion, so that we can satisfy the state statute and have our traditional annual meeting at another time and call it whatever we want.
This is my
That
big.
fits in with what the printed postcard already says.
So already, I mean, Jack's been super helpful. We have a great meeting planned, thanks to Gail. We have a top speaker, which so appropriately with all that we've been just discussing. So I've been checking every day on the Toy website, and you all, the board all knows I'm a big fan of Toy, but in this one, they're kind of letting me down. There's no guidance. I've emailed, I've called on this. I like right from the get-go, I thought, well, how does this affect? The explanation is that I'm sure the state has so many other things they're thinking about, that our annual town meeting requirement, and with all the crowd-free mandates, I'm sure that they just expect to extend that, and then it would be mute, except we have those, we have to fulfill certain things. The best thing is in the spring courier, I just wait until you guys see it. Jack has all the data that we present at the annual town meeting. It's so perfectly done in springtime, so that if we were having the meeting, everybody would get it right before. It's just perfect. So I'll keep track every day. I was going to present you the agenda just to have that approved, and then whatever happens with this, whether the state changes the rule on this, but I could never open up a meeting like if we were. I know certain groups are still having meetings, something, but that would be unless we did it virtual. So I don't know whether you want to approve the agenda. The agenda is pretty much the same as every year. You know, the location, the speaker's going to be terrific, and we have some really quality awards. So Alan, when you're saying another date, I want to keep the same meeting. Approve.
Well, that's what I was suggesting, that there
If
are
we-
some things we have to do by
we're gonna-
statute at the annual meeting. We'll
But
have a small meeting, do that, and go ahead and have
There's
our
a few
version of the annual meeting, which includes the speaker and all the other things when the facility is available and all those things, and hopefully we can get Mr. Kennedy to come and all the things we planned.
but there's a snag. For the first time ever, we've received a citizen petition. I think ever. I'd have to check way back and see. So a group of residents put together a petition, and they have to know then, and they probably all want to join us here on the screen if we did it that way, because it's their, I don't know how you'd handle that, because it's supposed to be an
I don't
open.
either.
I'm looking
I
still.
would assume our computer geniuses could figure it out, or we could find a
I don't think
room with chairs 6 feet apart, adding.
Alan, please tell us, what is the penalty if we delay the meeting? People keep talking about the state ordinance, and I understand there's an ordinance that says we have to have it such a date. What happens if we don't and move it for a month? I mean, Jerome, your toy
They'll
people aren't
take your
helping.
membership away.
I don't know, the lawyers and us can't really tell you to do that, so. But it's ultimately on Jerome's.
Thank you. I just want to wait for direction. I'm almost sure that within the week, they'll have a new rule from the state saying, do it within the summertime or the fall. And after all, for us, it's a real showcase. And I don't want to just do a thrown together
Yeah.
one. And citizen petition, really feel uncomfortable. They follow the rules. And then if we say, due to this, which is really important, John, we could never have a meeting. Can you imagine having a meeting in April? It just seems way too soon. And
Given the fluidity of the situation, I think we should definitely have another virtual meeting like this again before the township meeting. And by that time, hopefully things will resolve themselves. But Jerome, you mentioned the citizens petition. Can you shed any light on that?
yeah, it's on global climate awareness and global, it's a group of
I have a bit of a different take, if
they've
I
done this.
could. I think we should have a minimal annual meeting, satisfy the requirements of the statute. And as far as the subsequent meeting, sometimes you gotta let stuff go when other things take precedent. And this may be one of those situations where we go ahead, we do a video annual town meeting like we have, and there are other platforms that allow you to have up to 50 to 100 people involved if you want. But I'm not sure that we need to press having a full-blown annual town meeting at a later date, because it's kind of like having a birthday party after your birthday. It just doesn't hold the same significance. So I would be in favor of a minimalist annual meeting, be it video if necessary, and next year we'll pick it back up again. That's my take.
Definitely, it would be a great, honestly, just the location, I mean, it was going to be a great annual town meeting this year. So
Tell us the date of the meeting, Jerome. What's the date?
April 14th, but of course we're not having it.
And if you recall, we have to approve the agenda 15 days before that meeting.
Right, that's the confusion, Gail. I didn't know whether I put it out, but I didn't know what we should do with that.
Well, so today is theoretically the last meeting unless we put a notice out for another meeting, but we're still cutting it close. As far, that was 14th. Yeah, we would have to meet on Monday. I would suggest we approve the agenda per Stefan's suggestion to amend it to be a bare bones annual meeting. Though I happen to favor having a larger, party for our awardees and our speaker at a later date.
Dale,
So I would
spell that.
amend yes, I move to amend the agenda as presented by Jerome to include only the statutorily required elements of a town meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Sure.
Okay,
Aye.
then that's what we're gonna do.
Hey, thanks, Gail.
Excuse me, I got a question for Jerome. It's entirely possible that somebody, Toy or somebody, will all of a sudden wake up and realize that the governor has said nothing going, folks, and tell us all, you can have your annual meeting in the summer if you want it, and do that, let's say, before April 1st, because there's that 15-day
But
requirement.
Toy has been remarkably unresponsive.
Yeah, that's
We're
what I
being
get.
asked to do exactly what you just said, John.
Yeah, well, here's my thought on that one. Let's let that one roll, and if they don't come up with anything, let's refuse to pay next year's dues.
So my understanding is that they
I
are
mean, come
actually in a lot
They're
of
supposed to
contact with
keep-
this. I called the Illinois Attorney General's office as well, and she said, yeah, I've been getting this question an awful lot. So yes, this is an open
Yeah, what
legal.
are there, 1,400 townships in the state or something
Okay,
like that?
I've never even looked at the township code before, and now this is like my entire day. So
But Jerome is right. We're likely to get clarity on this very shortly.
Well,
I-
I'll check even right before the, just to see if they put it in a change, but. So Gail,
Well,
plan on
so-
meeting then? Yes.
as of now, we've voted to have a minimal town meeting on the date that we're supposed to. And then we'll see what we do after that. I mean, that's where we are at this point.
sorry, and
Also,
when I
just-
say the minimum,
They might have guidance on exact how to modify it because, and then my big question will be, since we've never had a resolution from the community presented, at least in the years I've been, then I don't want to shortchange it. Maybe they could do that at another time. But then again, maybe if we did a summer or fall meeting, no, Gail? Or say
No.
they-
no, my reading of the statute says that's going to be one of those few things we have to do.
So
That's the only thing we have to do.
Still getting-
Unless there's legislation, unless there's emergency legislation between now and the town meeting. I think as a board of trustees, as a board of the township, we should meet again prior to the meeting, because I think it's a fluid situation. We may have other things to discuss. We should meet once again virtually like we are tonight, and that should be scheduled before the town meeting in case we do get legislation that'll make the town meeting extended.
That makes
Ellie,
sense.
some of us are so busy, we don't have time.
Jack, how many can we fit virtually with this program?
250 with the minimum subscription.
You need a bigger screen.
Be lots of teeny tiny faces.
Love it. But yes, my reading says additional items may be placed on the agenda for consideration if requested by 15 or more registered voters in the township, provided written notice of the specific request is given to the township clerk before March 1st, prior to the annual meeting. So
So nothing came in by March 1st, so.
it came in, right? Yes,
Oh.
because they had emailed me saying we have to get this in by March 1st.
All the townships in the North Shore area are going to be affected. So they're doing it north.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I think that we can give them the option of tabling their own motion to that bigger meeting, but we have to have it on the agenda. We don't have a choice.
Can I call them and just ask, would they wish to do that? Or is it something I'll just put it on the agenda and then?
I would have them move at the meeting to table it, but that's just me and my love of parliamentary procedure.
I
Okay.
think Elliot's idea of having a board meeting, like April 3rd or 4th or something. And by then there, we may have some clarification by either the governor or Toy. And
Well,
so I
either
would,
we will or we won't. I mean, that's,
They will.
yeah, we may not. But I think Elliot's idea of having, this is item number 9 on our agenda, picking a board meeting a week or so earlier than we normally would is probably a good idea.
yeah.
These are unprecedented times. We're in the health and human services industry. Now is not a time to shy away from frequent meetings. I think we need to get one on the books for 14 days or so from now, before the township meeting.
Stefan, I understand your concern too about having a birthday party after the fact, but with the quality of our
Yes.
speaker, the mission, the purpose, the award for Alan, it's going to be a really good one. So maybe it will be just what we need in August or September. So maybe feel it differently than just a regular
The
meeting.
award for Alan shouldn't be, don't worry about that.
It's important.
But having the meeting, which is the celebration of our township, whether it's an annual meeting or not, I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
We can work that. and-
So in any event, our next meeting, April 7th. How's that for everyone?
So moved.
Does that give us enough time on notice and those kind of issues for the annual town meeting, Jerome? If we're that close?
We would
but we-
already have done it.
Well,
just
if they change the statute, there'll be some provision for making it legal if they get around to changing the statute.
So Stefan, I'll just take the existing agenda and then I'll just tweak it for whatever we can make it work. And I'll know the rules from Toy by then.
Okay.
So are we doing a meeting on April 7th?
Yes.
7:30.
I'm sorry.
Agree.
April
Yes.
7th, 7:30? What day of the week is that?
Tuesday.
Got me Tuesday.
April 7th looks good.
Good for me.
Okay.
Can we address some, I guess, pseudo still on the response, pseudo on old business? Community support grants. Are they,
sorry?
are community support grants going out as planned?
They, as of this minute, they are. Jean's working at home and the goal to get them out on the appropriate date. If something comes up, I will let you all know on an email. But if it happens, it'll be something that came up that prevented it. But the intent is to have them all go out on time.
Okay. I've had a few constituents contact me about that. School lunch recipients. My understanding is that they're usually in touch with Jeannie. Have they been, have the school districts been in touch regarding the need for any additional funds?
For with Jean directly, I would have to ask her that. She has not mentioned that.
So I got an email from District 39. New Trier Township, we had facilitated some sort of Target gift cards, and I talked to Brian about that for those who were school lunch recipients. But the superintendent was wondering if we can also offer Jewel gift cards to families who would normally be on school lunch. Now, generally, I believe school lunch is a federal funded program.
It is.
Yeah, so I don't know what, what the process is. But I would suggest that we allocate a certain amount of funds tonight to Jeannie for gift cards for students who are out, who are no longer receiving their free lunch.
I know the high school, New Trier High School, is providing lunches to all the students who get them on a regular basis.
Yep.
Correct.
And I don't know. I did ask District 37 if they do, and they weren't sure. It was hard to get hold of somebody because they're closed, and so I don't know about 37, but I do know the high school is giving out the lunches.
Let's also think for a minute, whether it's 37 or 36, they've got very substantial budgets, and it can darn well, I would think, if they want to give away some lunches to people that need, they can do it without our help. That's just an opinion.
I'd like to have a report a very brief report from Jeannie on that very subject by the next meeting, the April 7th meeting.
If she's back,
Whether there's a
I
need.
know her doctor said March 30th,
Correct.
but I think there's some wiggle room there. If she's back, we'll ask her. But we could ask her to prepare a written report in any event, but
Is there a need? Is there a need? Because if there's a need, we may have the ability to make a difference.
And this is for the school lunches, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
She would be able to reach out, and if she has received any additional requests, which I am not aware of, but she could certainly reach out to those people and her contacts.
I'm just thinking of the practicalities of preparing lunches.
Well, I'm not talking about the lunches themselves. I was talking about jewel gift cards.
Oh, the school can frigging afford it.
Though I did find a
That's
vendor that could do lunches for $2.50 each.
The issue is too the consistency and how many dollars we're going to allocate and how many. Because this could be quite voluminous, obviously. If you do this for one group, you have the obligation to do it for the other.
You
If
got
we're
it.
going to be fair and equal and treat everyone equal, which is what our objective is. And that needs to be considered.
Yep, agreed.
I have a request in for more information from them, so hopefully we'll have some more of a concept, because they were still doing their own research, contacting all families that were on reduced lunch to see how they were doing. So we'll have a better sense by the next meeting.
Right, we're meeting again fairly soon.
April 7th.
A week from next Tuesday.
2 weeks.
Correct. Today's Tuesday. I thought it was Wednesday.
All right.
We also contacted childcare scholarship recipients.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Gail.
For childcare scholarship recipients, I'm just wondering about, those families in particular who might be relying on their childcare system so that they can work. What have we reached out to them to see if they need additional services or support?
Are you asking if Jean has done so?
Yeah.
My answer, I would guess no. She is at home, as we've indicated, and I certainly can ask her. She's monitoring her calls and that type of thing. So I will ask her.
It doesn't have to be Jean, it can be anybody.
Well, there aren't so many anybody's. We have Larisha and Brian.
Right, and I did offer to do that in my email a few days ago. Which also reminds
the child care issue is interesting because this is one of those crises where parents are actually at home with their kids right now. And
Correct.
it's a little unusual in that regard. Families are together and it's hard to work out of the house, obviously, with kids there, but you're all together, so.
That's not necessarily the case. A lot of workers are considered essential if they're in healthcare.
Especially healthcare workers.
Absolutely. So, there are a lot of low-wage workers, especially who are considered required essential employees, and their kids have simply lost their care.
And you mean like healthcare workers that are more, not doctors and nurses, but people that clean and support the technical workers, the administrative workers.
Nurses, healthcare, childcare workers themselves, transportation workers, anybody who works in government is still going to work, so.
But a lot of those jobs, Gail, the income levels are such that they don't qualify necessarily under our program.
At this point, we've had a long time policy, and just in terms of food, that if anybody who's a township president, and even if they aren't to be unofficial, and they come in and they're hungry, we'll give them food.
Correct.
So we do have that available without changing anything.
Right, I just want to make sure that those families know.
Yeah, we can have Jack put out a press release or something to that effect, but
What is the
our
economic?
goal is not to hoard food in the food pantry, it's to give it to people who need it.
I just have a quick question. What is the economic threshold that roughly for childcare scholarships or childcare support for our township?
What is the line item? I don't have that here with me.
Not the line
No,
item, but what is?
And what do they need to qualify?
Yes.
I don't know those rules.
There is a
Directly.
formula. I don't remember what it is. I know Jean relies heavily on the social workers from each of the schools.
Correct. She
And they're
coordinates.
probably not available right now either. So I think we'll talk in circles all night without, none of us know.
Yep. Let's move on.
But Gail makes a
Yeah,
good
so
point.
let's go. That was old business with, that you brought up before, Gail. So now we're on new business.
Before we go to new business,
What?
are the committee meetings all canceled?
Yes. Ryan said he had sent something out to the agencies a week ago, and I believe he included the trustees. I'm not sure. He said he
Okay.
had put that out directly.
Thank you.
Okay. The April board meeting has been set. If there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Second.
Okay. Thank you. And hopefully on first week in April, we'll all be, Gail's pretty good at this already, but let me just speak for me. I'll be better at maneuvering around this thing, but thank you all for doing this. And we'll meet again on April 7th.
That's not high holidays, is it?
No.
No, no.
Okay, thank you.
Everyone stay healthy.
Wait,
Stay-
let me do triple check now. Now that you're scared.
Are they
The
Are they
8th
gonna-
is this first Seder.
do any Seder's this year and any services? Because, Catholic Mass has been canceled the last few weeks
Right.
and they're,
Immediate family only on the Seder. Immediate family only.
that's
And
going to be,
actually, one of the major rabbinic groups just put out a response saying that Zoom Seders are halakhically kosher as long as they start before the holiday and they are left on. But yes, our
And they
synagogue,
they are what?
services at
because you're
synagogue.
not allowed to use electricity on what's called Yom Tov or Yontiv. So as long as you start your Zoom meeting before sundown, you can keep it on the whole time. Yay, law.
Interesting.
Yes.
But there are no gatherings at any synagogue.
No, there aren't. We have a virtual synagogue going right now at Beth Hillel. Yeah.
Virtually every synagogue in the country is doing some form of that now.
Yep.
I don't know if you saw this, but the Pope was doing Mass alone. No altars. I mean, it was just shocking. It's like, wow, are we living in a different world? I mean, that was really remarkable.
Okay, so we're adjourned and thank you. And
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
I'm going, I gotta go take pills. So,
Thank you for
Good night.
good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Jack.